Tomorrow's Times today on Times Radio.
And for the next few minutes, we're going to find out about the power of comedy. Of course, we laugh, sometimes we cry, maybe with laughter. Comedy can be used to change minds, to raise issues, to call out difficulty, to satirise and mock, to entertain. And one comedian is also using comedy to help people recover from eating disorders. Dave Chawner speaks about his own experience with anorexia to help others. Hello, Dave.
Hello, Callum. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks so much for being with us. And we've got Dr. Dieter de Klerk as well, project lead and lecturer in film and media studies at the University of Kent, who's got a bit of insight into how this all works as well. Dr. de Klerk, Dieter, welcome to the programme.
Hi, Colin.
Hi there. Dave, let's start with you because I'm sure you will agree to an extent, perhaps, that anorexia feels like no laughing matter.
Yeah, absolutely. I realise it's got it's the mental health condition with the highest mortality rate, so it's not really a laugh a minute. But I think the important thing here is there's a difference between joking about something and joking around it. So what is the butt of the joke? What is the context? And what is the intention? And I think, for example, stuff like race issues on the surface, very funny. However, you've got wonderful comics out there like Dane Baptiste, Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock that have all talked eloquently and used humour in order to try and convey a message in a much more palatable way.
So in the context then of anorexia and eating disorders, how do you do this? How do you make comedy in this sort of area?
Well, that's the $1 million question. I think one of the things is looking at the characteristics. So the story that I always tell is that one of the manifestations of the anorexia was I became obsessed with exercising. So I was living at home with my parents. I'd always run upstairs and I was doing push-ups, sit-ups and squats. And when I was originally writing the show about the anorexia, I said to my mum and dad, why did you never come to me and talk to me about the anorexia? And my mum said, well, David, in our defence, you're a teenage boy, and when your teenage son keeps on running up to his room and all you can hear is rhythmical banging that's followed by repeated grunting, you tend not to ask questions, and it's that incongruity between life and reality.
And is comedy in this area something that has helped you personally then in your own life?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's incredible. I mean, there is no stand-up comic out there that goes on and sort of says, oh my God, I'm so happy. I am so financially secure. I'm in such a loving relationship and so famous. Apart from Russell Brand, there's no other comic out there that does that sort of thing. And there's a brilliant quote by Charlie Chaplin that sort of says humor is a great way of taking your darkness and playing with it. And I think that's all comedy is. And it helps build people's communication, which we know is really difficult when any mental illness hits. But it also builds that connection with other people when we talk about isolation and feeling lonely, but it also builds that confidence in a very real world way. And the thing that grates my gears a little bit is when we talk about eating disorders and getting better from mental health. It's very chintzy, it's very feminized, it's going on yoga retreats or doing mindfulness or drinking chai lattes, which is amazing if you live in Islington, but not everyone does. And actually, I didn't at all. And none of that stuff speaks to me.
So interesting. Let's bring in Dr. de Klerk then at this point. Dieter, I'm so interested to get some of the science behind this as well, in terms of what is it about comedy that can help address issues like Dave's been mentioning, for example, anorexia. If you are somebody who is living with an eating disorder and you are in the audience and Dave starts making jokes around this sort of area, what is that doing to me in the audience as a consumer of this comedy? How is it helpful?
Well, the workshop that Dave has developed comes from a place of lived experience, and he brings certain tools and skills that we think are very helpful for people in their recovery processes from eating disorders and anorexia. For example, Dave has already mentioned that comedy brings us together. There's an element of social connection, and we know that social connection is very important in the recovery process. There's also an emotional dimension of comedy, like having a laugh, having fun. Recovery can be something that is very daunting for people to engage with, can be associated with feelings which are, obviously not fun and joyful. So finding joy can actually, I think, be really powerful and empowering. And maybe a final dimension is one that when you laugh at something, you can really disarm a situation, or you can look at it from a different perspective, and something which otherwise might cause great anxiety when you can make a joke about it, you might actually be able to look at it differently. And, this can be the case with, there's lots of stigma about eating disorders, and that joke which Dave just made about, what he did in his bedroom, I think just takes that stigma away from it. So those are some of the skills and resources that doing stand-up comedy can offer people, and that's what the course which Dave has developed. We hope people engage with it and develop certain skills which can help them in their recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave, in terms of the course then, I guess, how do you mastermind something like this? What are the kind of stages that you need to bring people through to kind of get them over the finish line, as it were, with kind of comedy and the thing that they are struggling with?
Well, I think mastermind is a very generous term, Callum. I'm just a professional idiot. I think all of the real stuff has been done by Dieter at the University of Kent, but the basic structure is 6 weeks, an hour a week, and it's all done remotely, because I think one of the beautiful things that's come out of the past 18 months is that people feel that they can, interact online. So it's interactive, and it starts off trying to get that peer support. So we get to know each other through games and interactive workshops. And then you start with actually public speaking, and then with your onstage persona, and then with joke writing. But what Dieter has been able to bring to the table brilliantly is actually the sort of theories behind this, and also merging that idea of the theory and the real life stuff. And people learn through play. So we're trying to make it fun. And look, we're not trying to make the next Jimmy Carr, because I know nothing about tax evasion, but we are trying to find a new hobby that exists after the recovery, after they've done the course.
Okay, that's so interesting. And is this something that, have you designed like a whole comedy show, for example, around anorexia? Is it something that you would focus on for that sort of duration? Is it something that you kind of drift into throughout a set?
Yeah, I've been very lucky. So I've done tours before about anorexia, and I was very lucky to get an award at the House of Parliament for that. And so I wrote a book about that. And then I went on, and the main stimulus about this was talking about mental health rather than mental illness, because, 1 in 4 people has mental illness, 4 in 4 people have mental health. And actually, a lot of people don't look after their mental health because they think that mental health and mental illness are equivalent. It's only ever the negative that we talk about. It's not the positive that we talk about. And I think a lot of people think if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So this is quite a nice way of reaching out for hard to engage groups such as men, minority ethnic communities, older patients, and trying to get them to regulate an emotional intelligence, emotional connection and resilience through comedy in a unique way.
Dr. de Klerk, tell us more about the online comedy course, how it works, if we were to sign up to it, what will we do, what will we learn, that sort of thing.
So it's a 6-week course. It's an hour a week, and Dave will basically take you through learning how to do stand-up comedy. And for example, you might think it's all about jokes, but we learn, for example, through the workshop that it's really all about building a connection with the audience. And then it's also about having a certain kind of persona. So it's a really fun way of engaging with comedy, learning a new skill. And what we also then do is we bring in moments of reflection about stand-up comedians using comedy to address stigma around mental ill health, or to think about how we can use comedy in our recovery process. So it's, I think, a really fun way for essentially a recovery can be a very daunting process. It is very hard work. This is a way into it that is using the power of comedy, the power of play, to bring people into a space where otherwise they might not feel like they go. So Dave has, for example, pointed out that there are lots of men who have eating disorders, but sometimes find it more difficult to find their way to recovery. So what we're offering is a different way into recovery. You're learning a new skill, and you're also going to learn recovery skills in the process.
Dave, do you think it's kind of difficult to bring people to the point that you are at, where you can laugh about this sort of thing and you can make fun of it, and you can, as Dieter sort of highlighted a few moments ago, you can almost disarm it? Getting to that point must actually be quite a process for lots of people.
Well, I think that is a brilliant question. And the reason I think that's a brilliant question is recovery to a lot of people, especially from eating disorders, seems so difficult. It seems so mammoth. And actually, when I ended up being diagnosed as severely clinically anorexic and had to have fast-track treatment, was under the care of the Maudsley Hospital for 2 years. And everyone talked about taking the anorexia away. And that was my coping mechanism. That was how I made sense of things. That was how I retreated from the world. No one talked about giving anything back. So that's exactly what this course looks to do, is to give skills back, and exciting ones, but equally, to talk to your question there, to learn how to break things down. One of the biggest skills in recovery is taking baby steps. And anyone who will have been on the 8-step program or will have dealt with any sort of addiction or substance problem will tell you that actually when you break things down, take it one step at a time, that is when it becomes manageable. And this is a very accelerated way of taking huge topics, breaking them down into their component parts, and making life manageable.
It's really amazing. It is really amazing. I know that you've your comedy for coping course. It's got funding from the British Academy as well. So this is an exciting chapter for all of this, Dave.
So exciting. And we also want people to be involved as well. So if anyone's listening to this and they're aged over 18 and they have any experience of eating disorders, and that doesn't have to be diagnosed, that could be binge eating disorder, which actually accounts for 50% of people with eating disorders. And any background, as long as you're not in or outpatient treatment, you can get involved. And because it's been funded by the British Academy, it's absolutely free. So all you need to do is just email us at info@davechawner.co.uk or BEAT, which is the UK's eating disorder website. They have loads of help and resources, but they've also created a web page where you can find all of the details and get in touch through there. So we need people. So if anyone's interested, has experience, then this is completely open to you.
Love that. Dave, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us this evening. Nice to speak to you, and all the best.
You too. Thank you so much, Callum.
Cheers. Catch you soon. And Dr. de Klerk, thank you. Thank you for your expertise. Nice to speak to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All the best to you, Dr. Dieter de Klerk there from the University of Kent, and before him, Dave Chawner, comic author who speaks about his own experience and indeed jokes about his own experience with anorexia to help others. I should just mention, Dave's kind of mentioned it there, but I just want to do it once more. The BEAT Adult Helpline is open to anyone over the age of 18. Parents, teachers, or any concerned adult should call the Adult Helpline, the number for which is as follows. Stand by. Here it comes. It's 0808 801 0677. That number again for you. If you've missed it, you can always scroll back and listen on the Times Radio app if you've not found it, or indeed Google for BEAT Adult Helpline. But the number in any case is 0808 801 0677, or the email is help@beateatingdisorders.org.uk. There is also a youth line that's available. Have a little Google, search for the BEAT website, and you'll find all the numbers and all the information on there as well. This is Times Radio. It's 9:20.
Across the UK, on DAB digital radio, on the free Times Radio app, and on your smart speaker. This is Times Radio.